Good morning, everyone, and welcome to TourismTechnology.com's webinar, Twitter and Tourism 101. My name is Melissa Ennis, and I'm with Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador in St. John's, Newfoundland. We're very pleased that you could join us today, and I'd like to acknowledge participation from our partners in this project. That's the provinces of New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador, and the tourism industry associations of each province, including the Tourism Industry Association of New Brunswick, the Tourism Industry Association of Prince Edward Island, and us here at Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador. Then, of course, our other partners as well, Tourism Atlantic and ACOA. I'll just point out that Allison from TaiPi has signed on the webinar here, as well as Drew from TaiNB, so you guys can have a chat with them. They'll be joining in, asking some questions with us later. So the aim of the TourismTechnology.com project is to empower tourism operators in Atlantic Canada to improve their competitiveness by effectively using online technology. TourismTechnology.com provides operators with the skills, knowledge, and expertise to take advantage of current online tools and resources. We offer one-on-one mentoring, workshops, and tutorials, all ranging from basic to advanced levels of learning. We're very happy to have Crystal Hobbs of Reflective Marketing here with us today. A little bit about Crystal. She's never one to shy away from a challenge. She began her own agency after working with a number of small business owners who presented the same problem. We're doing great things, but nobody seems to know about them. With extensive experience in digital marketing and a passion for small business, Crystal created Reflective Marketing, a social media marketing agency here in St. John's. Reflective Marketing helps clients to illuminate their brand and attract their target market through online channels. In her spare time, Crystal enjoys contributing as a member of the marketing team for TEDx St. John's. Crystal is an Google AdWords certified professional, a Hootsuite certified professional, and she also has an inbound marketing certification from HubSpot. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Crystal to get started.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking some time today to learn about Twitter. So today we're going to do really a crash course for Twitter. So the first thing that we really want to cover is making sure that you understand the terms and some of the best practices for Twitter. And secondly, I want to show you how to confidently navigate Twitter, and we're going to actually do some live tweeting. All right, so I know Melissa already told you a little bit about me. My name is Crystal Hobbs. My company is Reflective Marketing. I'm there on the right with the red hair, and Beth on the left is our digital marketing specialist. And we help a number of clients to illuminate their brand and attract their target market, whether that's through social media, email marketing, or really any form of online advertising. So I wasn't always great at Twitter. I started on Twitter in 2010. This was my first tweet. So if you're feeling like Twitter can be overwhelming or you're not really sure how to get started, don't worry about it. You can learn really quickly. And I actually got Twitter pretty much the day before. I had a job interview for my first real job as a social media associate for a software company. And pretty soon I went from this tweet to actually ghost tweeting as the CEO of the company. So I want to make this as easy as possible for you guys. All right, so why are we talking about Twitter today? So in 2015, Twitter averaged 305 million monthly active users. So Twitter has a huge base. And your audience is likely on Twitter. Okay, so first let's just go through some terms that you'll need to know when you're navigating Twitter. And if at any time you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. And I'll try to answer some as we go, and if I don't get to them, we'll do it in the live Q&A afterwards. So first, starting with followers and following. So your followers are basically people who have subscribed to get your tweets in their feed. And following are the accounts that you're subscribing to. So when you actually look at a tweet, you'll see a number of buttons along the bottom. So you can see here the first one with the arrow pointing to the left. That's a reply button or an @mention, which we'll go through. The second icon there with the 2 arrows is for a retweet. And then the third icon there, the heart, that's a like. And the 3 dots that you see there, that's a more button, which will give you options to embed the tweet or start a direct message. All right, so a retweet. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this a billion times and may not know exactly what it means. But if you're familiar with Facebook, it's essentially the same as a share. So you're really sharing someone else's tweet. So it'll come up with their branding and their original tweet. And you can add a comment. So if you add a comment to a tweet, it'll come up as from you, and then they'll see the original tweet below. A like, very similar to Facebook, of course. It just lets the original creator of the tweet know that you've seen their tweet and you like it. And it also gives you the ability to save that tweet to reference back to later. So on your Twitter profile, you will see a section for likes, and at any time you can click to see the past tweets that you've liked. And an @reply or a mention. So really this is a public comment that's directed to or including a Twitter user. So there's a big difference between where you actually put that @mention. And if you get this, I guarantee you're better off than 70% of Twitter users, because a lot of people don't realize how the @mention affects how public your tweet is. So in the example on the left, you'll see that I have mentioned @HospitalityNL as the very first thing, whereas on the right side, you can see it comes later in the tweet. So the major difference with this is that if I put @HospitalityNL first, only Twitter users that follow both Reflective Marketing and Hospitality NL would see that tweet in their feed. Whereas on the right side, where I've mentioned it later in the tweet, basically any other character besides the first character, because I've done that, anyone that follows me will see that tweet. So the major difference is that if I put that @mention first, really I'm having a conversation with Hospitality, and only people that follow us both will see it. So it's a little bit different in how public your tweet is. All right, and a direct message. So this is really just a private message. And the great thing about this is that it's set in a different area, so you really can't get it mixed up, because you don't want to send something privately, of course, and have that go out to everyone. So just know that when you're @replying or @mentioning on Twitter, it is likely that more people other than the recipient will see it, whereas with a direct message, that'll be entirely private. Hashtags. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about hashtags. So the easy way to remember a hashtag is it's kind of like a keyword or a key phrase. So it'll help you keep track of specific conversations. And when you use hashtags, it's also a great way to get more exposure for your business. So if you are tacking on to, say, #tourism_tech, which we'll use later today, then you can see all the other people that are talking about tourism tech, and as well they can see that you're talking about it when you use that tweet. So it does help you to discover other people, but also for other people to discover you. And you can also customize the branding of your Twitter profile. And I'll show you this live in a minute. But just so you can see how it looks, when it comes to your bio, you do want to say in just a couple key words what it is that your business is about and really what the benefit is for someone to follow you on Twitter. You can also add, there's a specific area there for your location, and there's also a specific area for your website. So I see a lot of people will occasionally try to put their website within the bio, but really you're much better off putting it in the website section so that it's clickable, and then it's also not taking up that space within your bio. And in that bio, you have 160 characters to work with. It's not a lot, but it is more than a tweet. All right, and we won't get to talk too much about content strategy today, but I do like to kind of keep this in mind that when you're tweeting, you want to tweet things that are relevant to your business, but also things that your customers care about. And you can use the same content on multiple social networks, but you do need to tweak that content so that it performs its best. So Twitter, of course, we only have 140 characters to work with, so that kind of forces us to be pretty concise. All right, so now the fun part. So we'll jump right into Twitter. All right, guys, so you should be able to see my screen there now with Twitter. If you're having any problems, just let us know in the chat and we'll get you sorted out. So for now, you can follow along with me, and I'll let you know when you can actually hop on Twitter and do a couple tweets. So when you log into Twitter, you'll first see the home screen. So here are all the tweets of different accounts that you follow. On the left-hand side, you'll see trends. So you can actually change the location for the trends, but by default, I would say it should be set to Canada. So you can basically see what other people are talking about on Twitter. I know when I logged in last night, I saw there was a trending topic for Travel Tuesdays. And that's a popular hashtag that you can link onto because obviously anyone that's talking about Travel Tuesdays is interested in tourism. So first, let's look at the main navigation. So you see we're on the home page right now. And then next to that is Moments. So the Moments tab is basically, it's kind of like news or any trending topics. So if you're looking to discover new content, you can come in here and just see what other people are tweeting about. Notifications is really anybody that's talking or interacting with you. So this is definitely the most important thing to check on Twitter. So right now, you can see that I have all showing. So this is basically anybody that's interacting with me, whether they're following me, whether they're tweeting at me, or liking one of my posts. I can see all of that in here. If I click specifically on mentions, then I can see anybody who tweeted and used @ReflectiveMarketing. And then lastly, messages. So here is where your direct messages are. So if you want to send a new message, then you can just click there. Now I'll also show you to access your profile, you would actually click over here on your logo or icon. And you can click to view profile. Now there's a couple other things in here that I wanted to mention. First of all is lists. So you can, especially once you get used to Twitter and you're following a number of different accounts, you can use lists to sort of segment who you're following. So I might have a list for tourism operators, for example. And then if I go into that list, I can add different tourism operators, and that way I have one place to go where I can access all the tweets coming from the tourism operators that I've selected. And then I might have another list specific to social media, and then I can use that list to only see tweets about the users that I've selected that are about social media. So lists, again, if you click on the icon where you see your logo or profile picture, and then click Lists. So when you click on this icon, you'll also have access here to Twitter ads and analytics. So definitely once you start to get tweeting, you do want to check your analytics to see how many people are seeing your tweets and how many people are engaging with you. It'll also give you some really cool insights into what your top tweets were per month. So that'll give you some idea of the types of tweets that you should be doing more of. So let's just take a look at profile for a second. Okay, so when you're on your profile, you can click here to edit your profile, and you'll be able to change your profile picture or your header photo or anything here with your bio, location, and website. And you'll also see that you can select a custom theme color. So if you want your profile buttons and everything to be a certain color to match your branding, you can set that there. You'll also see who you're following. You can click to see who your followers were. And then also your likes and your lists. So one thing that we should point out is that you can also do a search in the top. So like I mentioned before, if you wanted to see other people tweeting about tourism tech, then you can search that hashtag up in the top. So now when you search that hashtag, you can see the top tweets, or you can click to see live, which is basically the most recent tweets about that. And again, when you see tweets, you'll have these options along the bottom. So I can click to reply, I can click to retweet, or I can like a tweet. So now let's have a bit of fun with this. So I'll give you a second to log into your Twitter account for those of you that already have one set up. And we'll actually get to some tweeting. So the first thing I'd like you to try would be to either retweet, like, or reply to a tweet. So you can go to @ReflectiveMarketing and check out and pick a tweet, anyone at all, and choose either retweet, like it, or reply. So I'll give you a couple seconds there to do that.
What a better time to practice your tweeting and Twitter etiquette when you have a Twitter expert on the line with you.
Yeah, and feel free to chime in the chat if you have any questions. And we will do a Q&A at the end, but I'll just give you a second there to log in. All right, we can see the notifications rolling in, so you guys are doing a great job. All right, so once you've done that, we'll actually do a tweet. So now if you click the tweet button in the top, I've already preloaded this tweet here. So you'll see that once you start to type the @ symbol and some letters, it'll actually pop up with different accounts that start to match that. All right, and I encourage you all to write a tweet similar to this one. So you can customize it however you like, but you'll see that you can tweet learning about Twitter and tourism today with @ReflectiveMarketing and tourismtechnology.com. Now definitely use the tourism tech hashtag here, so hashtag tourism tech. That way we'll all be able to see it And you can also tag your association if you like. Now you'll also notice there are some buttons here within the Compose New Tweet. So you can add photos or video by clicking the camera button, and this will ask you to find the file that you're trying to attach. Next to that is the add location. So if you wanted to tweet out exactly where you were, you could add a location. And this is primarily useful if somebody's searching for tweets in a certain area. That way, you know, if you were specifically tweeting from Bonavista and they were looking for tweets in Bonavista, your tweet would come up. But otherwise, you don't need to add a location. Next is add a GIF. So these are just kind of fun little media clips that play. So if I did one of these, you'll see that some of these come up here. And you can search for specific topics. So they just kind of add something that's a little fun and eye-catching. And then you can also add a poll. So if you wanted to ask a specific question, maybe, you know, what's your favorite Newfoundland specialty? Is it fish cakes or towns? You could do a poll like that. It's just a bit of a fun, engaging thing that you could tweet out, and you can specify how long you want that poll to run for. Now you'll also see that when I click to add the poll, because I'm adding something there, I'm actually going over my character count. So you have 140 characters to work with, and anytime you add a link, that takes up 23 characters. So just be aware if you're adding links, if you're adding polls or photos, that's going to take up some of your character count, which will force you to be a little bit creative with how you use your copy on your tweet. So you can see here that I'm 23 characters over once I add this poll. But now if I remove that, I have 1 character left to use. So how are we doing on the tweets? Do we have some rolling in there, Melissa?
Our phones are going mad with notifications.
Excellent.
Everybody's doing really well.
All right, guys. So I encourage you to keep the tweets coming for sure. And I'll also show you some lists on here. So if you're on your profile, or if you click in the top right corner and go to lists, or here you can see I have 13 lists. So now here you can see all the lists that I've created and subscribed to. Other people can add you to lists. So if I go to member of, I'll see any lists that others have added me to. Oh, isn't that a nice tweet? I'm going to like it. All right, so when it comes to lists, so I've created this one already called Tourism Operators. So if I come in here and I go into members, I can see who I've added to this list. And I can also see subscribers. So if you guys want to go to my profile and click on lists and go to Tourism Operators, and then click to subscribe, I'll add all of you in this list so you can see how that works as well. So now if I were looking just to see the tweets that come in from Tourism Operators, I can click on this Tweets button, and now I'm only looking at tweets that have come from those accounts. So the other really cool thing about Twitter, especially if you go to events or if you're attending webinars like this one, is often people will live tweet. So if you want to try live tweeting as we go through this, just use the hashtag TourismTech, and you can tweet any of your takeaways or sort of learnings that we've covered today. So I know when I went to the hospitality conference, they had the hashtag MyHNL, And that was great because anybody that was attending that conference was also using that hashtag. So I was able to tweet with other people, find new businesses and accounts to follow, and it also helps to really meet people. So you might have a conversation on Twitter at an event, and then you can later go find that person and connect with them. So it's really, really cool that way. So definitely try some live tweeting now as we go through this. Okay, so when it comes to hashtags, definitely recommend using them, but you don't want to overdo it. So keep it to 1 to 2 hashtags just so your tweets are still legible and it doesn't seem, sometimes when you use a lot of hashtags, it can seem kind of spammy. So you really don't want to do that. Just keep it to 1 or 2. Now, there are definitely a ton of different hashtags for tourism. So keep an eye out for different hashtags that might be relevant to you. Of course, today we're using tourism tech. There's also a hashtag tourism marketing if you want to talk to other tourism operators about how to market your business. I know every Tuesday there's Travel Tuesdays, so that's a great trend that you can hop on. There's also foodie chats, and you will find different hashtags that are specific to your area. So I've seen hashtag Explore Canada. There's also hashtag Explore NL, Explore NV, Tourism PEI. So definitely keep an eye out and look to see what your associations are tweeting, what hashtags they're using. You can also look at other businesses to see, you know, if there are similar businesses or businesses in your area, you can see what hashtags they're using. I see that, hashtag Love St. John's. There you go. So when it comes to Twitter etiquette, really you want to definitely thank people when they've retweeted some of your content because they're helping you get more exposure for your business. So it doesn't hurt to just @reply that person and say, thanks so much for sharing our tweet. If someone follows you on Twitter, the general etiquette is to follow back, but it isn't always necessary. So if it's an account that's really of no interest to you, or if it seems spammy, don't feel like you have to follow those people back. But if it is somebody relevant, it definitely is a nice thing to do to follow those people back. Oh, and I see a good question here. So upper and lowercase make a difference in your hashtags. So they don't actually make a difference. You can type it all lowercase, all uppercase, it doesn't matter. But what does make a difference is punctuation. So if you use an exclamation point or a question mark, that won't be incorporated in the hashtag. And if you use a space, then that'll break up your hashtag. So if you're using more than one word, you want to make sure that both words are together so that you're getting the full hashtag. And lastly, when it comes to Twitter etiquette, if you're talking about another business and they're on Twitter, you want to make sure that you @mention them. So today when I was talking about doing this webinar, I @mentioned Hospitality NL because I was coming in to do the webinar with them. Okay, so when it comes to tweet frequency, so on Twitter, Twitter has a lot happening. So you've probably seen, you know, just from the brief look that we took, that it can happen very, very quickly. There's a lot of tweets coming in, and especially once you start to follow a number of accounts, like I think for me, we're following 1,600 accounts. So my home feed on Twitter is moving very quickly. So when it comes to frequency, you really do need to tweet multiple times a day, just because it can be difficult otherwise to reach people because things are happening so quickly. Now recently Twitter has changed so that they are featuring tweets that have gotten a lot of engagement. So now when you log in, you'll usually see a small section within your Twitter feed that says while you were away, and it'll feature 3 or 4 tweets that seem to get a lot of engagement at that time. So you will see that, but otherwise, because, again, things are so fast-paced on Twitter, you do want to be tweeting multiple times a day so that you are getting in front of your audience. And really with Twitter, because it's so fast-paced, it's very difficult to annoy someone by tweeting too much. Now, that being said, you always want to consider your audience. So if your audience is an older demographic, maybe they're not following so many accounts, and it may be a little bit easier to be appearing too much. But for the most part, that isn't an issue. So when it comes to when you should tweet, again, you need to consider your audience. Think about, when is it that they get up in the morning? When are they using Twitter? Are they using Twitter at lunchtime, in the evening, on the weekends? And these are all questions that you need to ask yourself about your audience. Now, I will say a common mistake that I see is that businesses may not tweet during the weekends or really hours that they're not open. But you also want to consider that generally people use Twitter in their free time, which is usually evenings and weekends. So you do want to make sure that you have tweets going out at that time. So when it comes to building your audience on Twitter, the great thing about Twitter is that unlike Facebook, on Twitter it's really easy to build an audience without using a lot of advertising. So ads definitely exist and they can work for your business, but if you don't have the advertising budget to dedicate to Twitter, you can simply build your audience by tweeting great content, following people who are interested in what you have to offer, and following similar businesses or complementary businesses. So if you're a hotel, you probably want to follow restaurants that are in your area. And you can also look to Twitter lists. So like I said, where I created a tourism operators list, if you can find lists like that, you can follow the people that are in that list because they're going to be relevant to you. You can also search different hashtags. So for example, hashtag ExploreNL, and then see the people that are tweeting about that. You can also, those trending topics, so Travel Tuesdays, you can search that topic and then follow people that are talking about that.
I'm just going to throw in here that a hashtag like Travel Tuesdays is something that's used worldwide.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So it's something like ExploreNL is a little bit more local, or Love St. John's, but more generic ones are used by people all over the world. So they can be great ones to kind of include in your tweets on Tuesdays, of course.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a great point. Twitter is very global, so it is great for connecting with people that are outside of your area. And it's a lot easier to be found on Twitter than it is for other social networks like Facebook, for example. And lastly, just to kind of cap off with building your audience, you also want to make sure that you let people know that you're on Twitter. So if you have a physical property, so accommodations or a restaurant or whatever it is, you can have a sign within your business that says that you're on Twitter and give your Twitter handle, so that would be @ReflectiveMRKTG as an example. And you can also include links on your website. You can include your Twitter handle on any print material that you have, and even just telling people, hey, we're on Twitter, and you can cross-promote with your other social media channels that way as well.
Here at Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, we include our Twitter handles on our business cards.
Yeah, absolutely, and I have mine on my business card as well, so that's a great suggestion. All right, so just to do a quick recap before we get into Q&A, so definitely start to think about what questions you have. But basically what we've covered today is really a crash course into Twitter. So we talked about some of the different terms or lingo that you need to know when you're using Twitter. So an @reply or mention, a retweet, a direct message. Your Twitter handle is basically what people would tweet if they want to talk to you. And we also covered some best practices from Twitter etiquette to using hashtags to when you should be tweeting, as well as building your network on Twitter. And we went through live how you can navigate Twitter, and you guys have done a great job. We see the tweets are rolling in, so definitely keep that up, and it's really important to get that hands-on practice. And I also encourage you to follow Reflective Marketing on social media. So we're always posting different tips, the latest news, all of that stuff. So be sure to engage with us. So now I'll turn it over to Q&A.
Okay, so I see one in the chat window here first from Shelly. When you reply, I've seen MT and then the @ mention of the company or the profile instead of RT. So can you explain a little bit of what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question, Shelly. Thank you for asking that. So MT refers to modified tweet. So if somebody was retweeting something and adding their own comments or changing, a spelling mistake or something like that, then they would put MT or modified tweet just to let people know that the original tweet has been modified. Since Twitter added the ability to add a comment, you don't see MT so much anymore, but that definitely has been something that's been used in the past. I see another question here. Are pictures important in tweets? I would say pictures aren't required, but it definitely adds a bit more visual interest. So you really want to think about Twitter is so fast-paced and there's so much happening. And we are a very visual society. So if you're using pictures in your tweets, you're much more likely to get noticed or stand out amongst the other tweets. So they're not necessary, but I would recommend using pictures.
Another question there from Nancy. If you make a spelling mistake, can you edit your tweet?
Yeah, that's a great question and one that plagues me. Right now, you cannot edit a tweet. So if you make a mistake, you have to delete it and write it again or just live with this, unfortunately. Now, I feel like I have heard rumors about them making that functionality change so that you are able to edit it, but right now, it doesn't exist, unfortunately.
But see, the great thing about Twitter is because you are limited to that 140 characters, absolutely perfect grammar is not 100% a must. Obviously, you want to stay professional and make your tweets legible, of course, but a small typo or excluding a punctuation mark where you know there should be one is not the end of the world on Twitter.
Yeah, great point. Thanks, Melissa.
Let's see. Marika has some questions. Sometimes I attach photos and they appear in the feed, but sometimes they only appear as a link. I haven't really heard of that before. They usually will always appear in the feed right below your content.
Yeah, so I think as long as you use that camera button, essentially, to upload the file, then you shouldn't have any problems there. It may be, if you're using a third-party service, like Hootsuite, for example, I have seen that happen before, where it'll upload as a link, but I haven't seen that on Twitter itself.
Michael, I think hashtag #BoilTours is a great hashtag for you to use with yourself and your customers and the tourism industry here in the province. It'd be a great way to identify yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you comment on the voting feature?
Okay, Lexi and Mark, I think you're referring to the poll.
I think so.
Yeah, so that's a fairly new feature. I have seen it used in really creative ways. It's more so something to have fun and get some engagement. So you will get people that are, sort of giving their feedback through there. And I've seen a lot of really fun ones where it's like, what's your favorite food, pizza or burgers, and you have to choose one and stuff like that. So it's just a way to have a bit of fun with your audience on Twitter.
Do you have any advice regarding connecting Instagram to Twitter? Does how you write the Instagram message affect how the tweet shows up in searches?
Great question. So I don't advise that you directly publish from Instagram to Twitter. And the reason for that is when you're posting on Instagram and you send it out to Twitter, it does come up as a link, actually. So maybe that's what was happening in the previous question. So the downfall of that is that somebody doesn't see your picture in the feed, and B, they then have to click to go to Instagram in order to see it. So if somebody's not on Instagram, that can be a bad experience for them because they're not used to Instagram, and then you're trying to send them there. So the better way would be to upload the picture to Twitter directly, and you can use the same sort of copy. And I would also say that on Instagram, it's pretty usual to use a ton of different hashtags, whereas, again, we don't really want to do that on Twitter.
Can I link my account with the hotel account? So if you have two different Twitter accounts, I think here, whether or not you want to link them together, if they're two separate ones, I don't think there's not a way that you can link them together and tweet from one to the other.
And Chris, I guess the other thing is when you're on desktop using Twitter, you do unfortunately have to log out and then log into the other account. But on your phone, it does give you the option to add multiple Twitter accounts, so you can easily switch between the two. And the other thing is that, as your personal account, you can retweet things that are happening on the hotel account.
This is a good question. Does a link exist between hashtags on Twitter and the same hashtag on Facebook?
That's a great question. And no, there is no direct link. And generally, I wouldn't recommend using hashtags on Facebook anyway. I would say generally the Facebook audience might not know what a hashtag is, A, and B, Facebook has only really just started to build the functionality behind hashtags, and so far it doesn't always work because somebody might have their privacy settings to friends only, and if that's the case and they use a hashtag, their post isn't coming up when you do that search anyway. So generally, keep the hashtags on Twitter and not on Facebook.
And I think I see another question. Can we just remind again how to thank someone who shares who retweets your tweet or likes something? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So you will get a notification that somebody has retweeted your tweet. So when you get that notification, you can either simply compose a tweet and then say @HospitalityNL, thank you for retweeting, or when you see that retweet, you can hit the arrow that kind of points to the left so that it's an @reply, and then from there you can say thanks for the retweet. But either way, it's kind of a manual process.
I think Mr. Craig Foley is about to send out a Twitter poll. He wants to know how you found today's webinar. So if you look up Craig on Twitter, he's @CraigFoley HNL. Or he used the hashtag TourismTech. So if you search that, you should see every tweet that went out today that used the hashtag TourismTech. So I'll just type in his profile there. I'd encourage everybody to go answer Craig's Twitter poll.
All right, and if you think of a question later today that you didn't get to ask, absolutely feel free to just tweet me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Guys, this webinar, this is the most engagement we've ever had, I think, on a webinar.
Excellent.
This is awesome. We love seeing people participating on Twitter and actually learning as they're going and putting it into practice.
Yeah, for sure. I want to see all your tweets later today when I log back in.
Yes, it's going to be a bit of a task to sit down and go through them all. And there's several new people that we've connected with to follow and like their tweets or retweet them, start some new conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will add anybody that's kind of engaged with us today, I will add you to that tourism operators list, so then you can subscribe to that and follow anybody on there that you're not already following.
Okay, so if you're wondering what your next learning steps might be following this presentation, there are many technology learning options available to you simply by contacting your Provincial Tourism Industry Association. We would be happy to help you determine your next steps, whether it be a one-on-one mentoring session, further workshops or training opportunities, or even advanced mentoring sessions. Coming up on May 4th, our next webinar focuses on e-commerce options for tourism business. So if e-commerce is something that you're looking into incorporating into your website as a tourism business, I definitely would encourage you to attend. We have Dr. Dale Foster from the Gardner Center at Memorial University joining us for that discussion. That's on Wednesday, May 4th. As well this spring, tourismtechnology.com is planning a series of workshops throughout Atlantic Canada that will provide tourism operators with some in-depth training on how to fully utilize Facebook as part of your digital marketing strategy. So you can contact your provincial TIA to get more information about that as well. Thank you to Hospitality NL member Crystal Hobbs. That really was an awesome presentation, and I think a lot of people got some great takeaways and again, practice using Twitter as we went through the presentation. A lot of valuable information covered there today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You guys have been great. I'll tweet with you later.
You will be receiving a follow-up email that has some more information and some resources, such as those that we mentioned today, as well as a link to an evaluation survey so you can give us your feedback. We would love to hear what you thought of today's webinar and any suggestions you might have for future topics or how to make future webinars better. Check out tourismtechnology.com for a complete list of resources and future training opportunities, or again, call your Provincial Tourism Industry Association. Myself here in Newfoundland and Labrador, Drew in New Brunswick, or Allison in PEI. Again, thank you to our project partners, the provinces of New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as the tourism industry associations of each province, H&L, TINB, and TIPI, and of course Tourism Atlantic, ACOA. Thank you everyone for joining today, and we look forward to working together in the future. We'll see you on Twitter.